Hello and welcome to my usual walk and talk location. I'm in Somerset, of course, and just thought I'd go out for a little trot and have a little chat. Been a little while. I've been away on holiday, which was really welcome. But actually going away on holiday and finding myself working whilst I was on holiday is part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation. Now, one of the sort of things I've experienced in my life as a working artistic chap is trying to find that work-life balance, because we all know that being a musician or a filmmaker or a writer, it starts out by and large usually as a kind of vocational calling, something we enjoy to do when we're at home. Probably started when we were at school, that sort of thing, and you come back and your guitar's all you think about when you're at school, and you get home and all you want to do is play it. And so it sort of becomes a sort of part of your existence that practically takes up all of your joy time, because it is joyous. But I think where it kind of starts to come unstuck is when you start to be professional, when you become professional at this given vocational thing, because really turning something that is a joy to do in your downtime, in your personal time, that doesn't ever feel like an effort, doesn't ever feel like a burden. It's just something that actually brings you contentment, stimulates everything that you feel about that art form, whatever it may be. And so you're kind of doing it naturally. It's a flow, isn't it? You do it because you love it. Where it starts to come unstuck, really, which is the kind of biggest irony, really, is when you do turn it into a career. Now, of course, and don't get me wrong, me, just like an awful lot of musicians out there that have spent a lifetime in this industry, we've got nothing but, by and large, my experience of talking to other people, nothing but feelings of privilege and feelings of, I guess, that we were very lucky. I'm trying to find. It's difficult to find the words, really. It's not privilege. Privilege is the wrong word. I think it's more about the fact that, because often the arts aren't lauded as a career, even to today, even today's standards, the arts are being derided, run down, even though it's an enormously successful industry. Yes, there are gateways these days with education, but education's a big business. And so that kind of gets wrapped up in the concept of trying to teach somebody something that's essentially just part of the hope economy. So that in itself is kind of problematic. If you have an art school, a music college, full every year of hundreds of kids, all aspirationally believing that they can become a rock star or enter the music industry easily because they're going to get a degree, then that really isn't the case. Now, I'm not running those places down, because God knows if there had been music colleges or contemporary music courses in the way that they are now available to kids when I was a kid, I would have jumped at the chance. But the reality is that the entertainment industry is difficult and requires every single person wishing to take part in it to commit extraordinary amounts of time. I mean, the whole thing of the 10,000 hours makes an expert. Well, believe me, most musicians, artists, studio engineers, filmmakers, writers, performers of any kind that I've met and had conversations with, have easily fulfilled that criteria in a relatively short space of time. I often sort of think, whenever I'm in a studio and I'm working with a band, or I'm like recently been working on my own record, that it's common to spend 15, 16 hours a day working on the project. Now, that's not necessarily because I want to, it's because I have to. Time limits, etc. People's time is always squeezed. Studio time is always squeezed. It's never that, it's not as easy as you think, of course. You go into the project hopefully fully planned. I'm pretty well planned whenever I make a record or I'm involved in anything these days. And you have to pre-plan, and that in itself is extraordinary amounts of time. And so by the time you sort of add up all those hours, you're almost doubling, by and large, pretty much the effort of what I would call a kind of normal job in lots of ways. It's not 9 to 5. And I'm not saying for 1 minute that other jobs don't contain after work processes. Of course they do. But what I think there is an intensity to being artistic that is partly driven by your desire to create great work. I mean, I don't know a single artist out there that doesn't want to do the best they possibly can. No one goes into a studio or into a film project wanting to make something rubbish. We all think it's going to be the greatest record ever made or the greatest film ever made. And I know we've talked about this before, but I think, and that's true, that's the way you have to feel. But it's slightly different in as much as it's driven by different desire levels. I don't know many musicians out there that started off wanting to be in a band and ever thought about the money, for instance, and therein lies the rub. We often find ourselves as creative people in a bit of a financial rut. You spend hours and hours and hours making something or performing or driving up and down the country to perform with your band, and the old cliches are true. You come home with less money in your pocket than you started, but you still keep going. So all of these things combined, and I could talk about this subject for a long time. And like I say, I'm not deriding education. I'm not deriding the industry at all, because it's just the way it is. It's never going to change, and AI isn't going to change that. No matter what anyone thinks, it's always going to have to be about human endeavor, the human nuanced experience. So it is complicated, and I think part of the thing is that we find ourselves in this situation readily, and we get used to it. It's like, familiarity, isn't it? That old classic word. You become used to doing something, and so it becomes so familiar to you that you can't not do it. You have to do the same thing every time. And as I think it was Einstein that said, the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Now, that may well be true, but also doing the same thing over and over again hones your skills, and you become better at the thing that you're trying to do. Okay, I've got a car coming, so I'll just have to wait a second. Well, that was a nice old car. Certainly smelled like an old car. That old petrol smell from the 1970s. Anyway, I digress. So commitment to an instrument, commitment to writing, commitment to being a great painter or sculptor or whatever it is, into pottery or weaving or whatever. All of these things take extraordinary amounts of time to hone and to be, for somebody to become good at it. And that's not even considering the talent level. You can be exceptionally talented naturally. I think actually talent's a bit of a weird word, isn't it? I often sort of think it's a strange sort of overarching broad stroke to sort of somehow explain people's ability to do things better than others. And I don't necessarily think it's about talent. I think it just depends how much effort you put in. I think there has to be a flair. I think you've got to be interested in something enough to want to really reach into it and really dig down. But I think half the talent is actually having the pragmatism and the organisation to really work at it, and keep going. This is massively part of the thing, is just how do you keep going when you're not earning any money, but you've got this dream, this hope economy dream of being part of something really special, and that's the driving force. And this is human, very, very human to feel like this. But I think where it comes unstuck is when it starts to really affect, your personal life. Now, for instance, I went away on holiday 2 weeks. I feel very lucky to do that. I went away with my wife and some family members, and we went to Portugal, and it was great. But I was under pressure to deliver a script. Now, look at me. I'm going to be 57 in a couple of weeks' time. I've been in the music industry for nearly 40 years as a professional. You know, I've had some moments in the middle of all that where I wasn't professional because I couldn't afford to carry on doing it, but I always kept my hand in, etc. But I've considered myself to be a professional artist, you know, all of my life, really. But look at me, 57 years old in early October, and I've started a new career as a screenwriter. Now, why have I done that? Well, it's because I was driven to it. You know, I felt compelled to write a story about the music industry, and got encouraged by a very close friend of mine who's now the producer, one of the producers in the film company that I have, with 3 other people. And, you know, the idea was great because what it was really doing was employing the skills that I already had. Didn't kind of realise I had them, but knew I was kind of good with words because I've always written lyrics. And also, you know, I've always enjoyed the challenge of writing, specifically because I'm dyslexic. It's always been a struggle to understand words and figure them out. And so by the consequence of that, I spent a lot of time researching words and trying to improve myself just by using language correctly, because I never used to. I mean, I used to embarrass myself, especially in the Little Angels when I was dealing with journalists. There's 2 or 3 famous moments where I just was, you know, Mrs. Malaprop, where I was using all the wrong words. And it wasn't because I was trying to impress anyone. I genuinely didn't know, because I just didn't fully understand. Just because that's what dyslexia does to you. I'm sure those out there that are dyslexic will understand that. So, you know, it was a process of learning, and something that I had to do for my own good. But once I I'd got the idea that perhaps I could write something, I did, and, you know, it's reacted very well, and I've now got people interested in me as a writer. But it feels like starting again. And part of starting again, or starting something new, is that you are playing catch up, aren't you, all the time with the people that have been in it all of their lives. They've had careers, successful careers, and you're the new kid on the block and you're having to prove yourself. And so it feels a lot like it did when I was in Little Angels for the very first couple of years. You know, I have been screenwriting now since 2020, since lockdown, so I've kind of been doing it 4 years or so now. And I've just achieved my first contract. I'm writing a film for an Australian company based on a concept that they came up with that I've developed. And it's going great, you know. But to get back to the point, found myself on holiday for 2 weeks with my nearest and dearest. And what was I doing in the evenings? Spending 4 or 5 hours a day trying to finish the second draft of this script because I was under a deadline, you know. And the kind of craziness of it is that even though it was stressful, I did really enjoy it. So how do we overcome this work-life balance problem? It's a tough one. Because, you know, by any definition, I think I'm probably a workaholic. I mean, I know it's a bit of an overused term. And it's not like I've kind of done it on purpose, really. It's just that I like to work. I think that's one of the key things about being artistic, that it isn't a struggle. You know, when it's going great, it's the best thing in the world. And even though it might only be you that's enjoying the fruits of your labours, it somehow is very satisfying. And you want other people to like it, and the whole reason why you're doing it is to try and get other people interested, which might ultimately lead to a greater level of people appreciating your work, and hopefully, possibly, maybe, just maybe, making some money out of it. And again, the money is always the last thing we think about. I mean, take for instance the script I'm writing. You know, I'm writing this, and I have been writing this script for getting on for a year now. And I won't get a single penny from this script unless this film goes into production, which it looks like it probably will do next year. But that's next year. In the meantime, I've had to spend inordinate amounts, I can't even say it, huge amounts of time, you know, doing the drafts and redrafting and rewriting and having script consultations with the company and figuring out where I'm going wrong, where I'm going right, how we can improve it, etc. So that is all done on a promise, which, you know, as ever, is never that easy. So once again, I find myself working for nothing at a time in my life where a lot of people are retiring or thinking about it. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of people have had a career for 30, 40 years, are winding down, trying to figure out what they're going to do in their retirement, whether it's going to be golf or moving away to the continent or whatever, which is obviously difficult now. But you know what I mean. I'm just trying to illustrate the fact is that that isn't my life. And you know what? I don't even think it ever would be. Even if I had all the money in the world, I'd still work. I'd still have dreams. I'd still have goals. I'd still have a vision. Because that's part of the makeup of being artistic, you know. And I think that's really important. You know, it's life-giving. You know, I don't ever think of myself as being, oh, the 56, nearly 7-year-old bloke. What an idiot, he started a new career. I'm excited by the idea of it. But again, getting back to the life-work balance thing, it's just about managing it and finding the strength to keep going, keep the focus and the vision alive, whilst at the same time juggling domestic life at home, making sure that you're attentive as much as you possibly can be to your family, to your friends, to the situations you've got to deal with. You know, I mean, I'm the same as everybody else. I've got a house to look after, you know, and you know, by and large, looking after the fabric of the house has rested on my shoulders, and I'm quite happy about that. No problem. My wife works every day. She's got a little business and she works really, really hard. But you know, I've just like everyone, it's always a struggle to try and make that happen. I mean, at the moment, I'm finishing off the Lookout album, the first 6 songs, and I'm finding myself in my little studio in the house, 12 hours, 13 hours, even at home. So I guess the short answer is you've got to make sure that whatever you're doing has even if it's just the very vaguest possibility of going somewhere, that it has some kind of result. It's going to have a conclusion. There's a reason for it to happen. There's no point. It would be ridiculous of me to sit around for extraordinary amounts of time writing scripts if I didn't believe that there was something was going to happen with them. Now, I could do it for fun. You could argue that, yes, of course you can. That's what people do. Look at J.K. Rowling or any of these amazing sort of writers. You know, they did it in poverty. You know, she wrote the Harry Potter series in Portugal, funnily enough, in poverty, pretty much, and achieved enormous success because she believed in the idea. But that's the whole point, isn't it? She was so dramatically involved in the concept of those stories that she believed wholeheartedly it would come true. You know, the whole idea would come true, come to fruition. And indeed it did. Most successful writer of all time, arguably. So there's a kind of, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's a sort of reality check. You know, the scripts I'm writing at the moment, Belly of the Beast, which is the one I started writing in lockdown, is now going forward into production. We've got a whole team of people around it, but it's very, very slow. It might be another 2 years before we actually get that before the cameras, but that's not unheard of for independent filmmaking. So I think what you need to do with any of these aspirational sort of jobs is be realistic, be honest with yourself, understand that it's going to take extraordinary amounts of time to find your way forward with any of these medias, be it writing, be it music, be it film, be it whatever else. Anything that's aspirational in that way is a commitment of arguably probably 10 years to even see any results, unless you're very, very lucky. So the question really isn't, is my life-work balance correct? Is my life-work balance based on a truth? Is it based on a future? Because if you really don't believe it enough, or you're not making enough effort, if you like, to take that work and take it to the next stage, then I would suggest you're probably doing it or kidding yourself for all the wrong reasons, you know. Now, don't get me wrong. Anyone that picks up a pen, a guitar, a keyboard, a pair of drumsticks, and has the belief and dream that they can do something with it, all power to you. It's absolutely essential that humans do this. It's part of our needs, our real life needs, you know. Art is incredibly important, and we need to do it. And it all starts with a single step, doesn't it? You know, we don't know where it's going to go. But all I would urge anyone who's getting involved in these industries is take a long, hard look at it. Do your research. Like for me with script writing, I've read so many screenplays written by other people. I'm doing a course at the moment, a screenplay course that is essentially a very practical course about how to improve your screenwriting. It's cost me money, of course, you know, but I believe in it, and I believe in myself as a screenwriter, and I believe in myself as an artist, and so I'm quite happy to make that commitment, even at this stage in my life. So yeah, but the one thing you've got to be very careful about is you just don't ignore everyone else around you, because that can become very problematic. It's not fair to ignore people. I mean, I feel terrible when I'm sat in front of my computer and it's 1 a.m. and I haven't seen my wife that evening, you know, and it happens regularly. But she's an amazing person and understands, and I try and make it up to her in other ways, you know. So I think it really is a question of how you manage the time. But the good news is dreams can come true, as the song once said. And, you know, to a certain degree, I am living proof of that. If you've got enough endeavour, if you've got a dream, if you have a vision for what you want your life to be, and you can stick at it, as long as you can weather the storm, it is possible to get there. Now, I'm not by any means one of the biggest artists out there. Of course I'm not. I'm an absolutely tiny artist in comparison to lots of others. But again, I don't think that's the point. What is this term making it? Well, I believe making it's being able to do what you love for your career and for your loved ones, for your life, and be able to wake up every morning and call yourself a musician or a filmmaker or a writer or a painter. If you can do that for your career and get through, you don't need to have fortunes. The modern world is so obsessed with wealth, isn't it? Oh yes, the whole idea is that, you know, if you've got tons of money, then you've somehow made it. Well, I don't actually believe that. You know, it used to be that we used to talk about the quality of our work. It used to be we used to talk about what a great job we had and how much we're enjoying doing that work. Now all people seem to talk about is how much money they want to make or they've got. And I think it's a shame, because it takes out some of the glory. It takes away some of the beauty of being artistic. Because actually, you can survive as an artist as long as you're doing your work and you're creating stuff and people are enjoying it and you're making a living from it. It doesn't have to be, you know, a king's ransom. It can just be enough to get yourself through. I mean, one of my favourite phrases of recent years is learn to know when you've got enough. Not how much more you need, but when you've got enough. That your life can tick along and you can enjoy what you're doing. I don't know, this is easy for me to say, of course, but I think you take my point. Anyway, I won't bore you any longer. These opinions are all my own, and I mean it with the best of intentions. I love the art world, and I love artistic people, and I love seeing new work, and I love new talent. And it's great to see that the rock business, for instance, is very buoyant at the moment on the grassroots. Some great bands out there, and I support it wholeheartedly. I just want everyone to be careful and I think, you know, if we can learn anything from any of this, and certainly one thing I've learned in my life, and I wish I'd learned a lot as a younger man, is to make a longer plan, take notice of the past, and learn from other people, and maybe you'll find a way through. So I bid you a farewell and good luck in all of your endeavours, whether you're doing anything artistic or whether you're doing something else. I mean, most of the other jobs outside of the art world, you know, as far as I can see, are infinitely more involved than anything I do, but in a different way. And I admire anyone who sticks at the plan that they have and keeps going. And that's the whole thing, isn't it? No matter what, don't give up. As long as you believe in what you're doing, don't give up. So thanks for watching again on one of my walk and talks. I hope to see you again, and if you want to check out any of my other stuff, go to tobyjacksonofficial.com, and it's all there. And yeah, all through the usual social media. Best of luck. Speak to you soon.